Keith,
Pete, we're here again.
welcome back.
What's up, dude? So we got Metallica today.
Have you ever seen Metallica?
I have one time. One time.
Where was it at?
I saw them in Tampa, and I believe Gojira was opening for them.
Excellent band.
Yeah, Gojira.
Yep.
10 out of 10.
Absolutely.
God bless the French.
Yep.
But, yeah, it was a cool show. I mean, I tell you what, I'm more impressed with Metallica's pyro work than their actual playing at this point.
It's an excellent pyro, but let's back up. What tour did you see them on?
Oh, God. I want to say it was the Death Magnetic Tour. I believe it was the Death Magnetic Tour.
I worked that at MSG. That's the one where they had the big coffin.
Yeah.
The big coffin lights over the stage that would come up and down.
Yeah.
That had to be 2012, 2011.
Yeah.
Around that era.
Yeah.
Whatever that was. Yeah.
That was a great show. I mean, dude, Metallica knows how to put on a great show. Like, except, I just feel like over the years, Metallica is playing wise. Like, James is still great. Robert Trujillo, fantastic. Kurt Hammett,
Doing the job.
doing his thing.
Doing the job.
Doing the Kurt Hammett thing. Lars, what happened to Lars? That's all I want to know. What happened? You went from writing Master of Puppets, Ride the Lightning, Injustice for All, the
Well,
Black Album.
Back it up, Tiger, because I saw these guys open for Wasp when they were on their tour for Kill 'Em All, right? And whatever year that was at the Variety Theater in Cleveland, Ohio.
Wow.
And then that music at the time was so underground, you only heard it on college radio. There was no such thing as airwaves playing what with this new heavy metal genre that was coming out, right? And then they had Ride the Lightning was the next album.
Right. After
Right.
Kill 'Em All, yep.
After Kill 'Em All. And my band at the time picked up the song Ride the Lightning. We were doing that.
Right.
Which was not always popular in the nightclubs where they wanted to hear the teeny bopping music, but we were playing and then after that, Master of Puppets, which is hands down, I think, their best album.
Right. I definitely think Master of Puppets is by far their most, I would say, eclectic album. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the heaviest album.
No.
When I think about the heaviest album Metallica ever put out, it would definitely be Injustice for All, because I really like what Jason Newsted brought to the band, because I believe he's
not in the mix,
but
you can't even hear him.
But he did write the intro to Blackened. And Blackened is one of my favorite Metallica songs. Oh, no, sorry, not Blackened. Battery. What the fuck am I talking about?
Battery?
Yeah.
What the fuck are you talking about? That's Cliff Burton. That's the other album. That's Master of Puppets. Down at the Battery. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got fake news, and that's why he's not allowed to smoke the reefer.
Yeah. If I smoke the reefer, it even gets worse.
Yeah, no doubt about that. No, brother, that is Master of Puppets, because all my favorites are on there. Leper Messiah.
Right. Well, and then also, Call of Cthulhu's off of Ride the Lightning. Right? That was a Ride the Lightning album.
Don't know if I agree with your police work there, Norm. Call of Cthulhu?
Call of Cthulhu?
That is also Master of Puppets.
No! All right. Now
you're going to have to get your phone out.
Now I got to get my phone out.
You got to do that thing I hate the most and anything. You got to fucking Google it. But you better start Googling it, because this is starting to sound like fake news.
Hold on. No, there's no way Call of Cthulhu was on Injustice. Master of Puppets.
Master of Puppets.
The Call of Cthulhu was the last song on Ride the Lightning.
Which is exactly what I'm saying. It's on Ride the Lightning. Everybody knows that. It's the last song.
Wait, but weren't we talking about Master of Puppets?
We might have been, but that's not the point. The point is that we all know what happened because we were there.
Right.
So,
I wasn't.
yeah, Ride the Lightning, great album. You know, Call of Cthulhu is the last song on it.
Yeah, and I think if we're gonna just take this way back,
Take it.
just starting from the first album to the second album, whatever. Like, was it the Three Horsemen? That's off of Kill 'Em All. Like, that's one of my favorite.
Might have been Four Horsemen.
And it was Seek and.
We can't afford 4 horsemen. Can we do it with 3? We had 2. We're down to 1. What's happening with the horsemen? Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh, no, when it comes to the first album, I thought the first album was really great. Considering... the thing I find strange, right, about the first record is, like, you had bands like Judas Priest coming out in that era as well, and they had really great sounding heavy metal albums along with Iron Maiden, the other metal greats. Like, just that album production quality, not that I'm trying to get into the whole nitty-gritty of the album, but I'm kind of disappointed in that first record, but I guess then again it was recorded, in probably not some great studio like the other
It was
albums.
rough. It was raw. The budget was low. They could only afford a guy from the sandwich shop to come mix it. But I got to say, Judas Priest, they started back in the 70s, man.
That's true.
I mean, Rob Halford had long hair and wore hippie clothes. He had bell bottoms on, for God's sakes.
I think as far as the greatest metal bands of all time go, Metallica is one of them for sure in the grand scheme of heavy metal.
When you look at the arc of all of it, since the late 70s, early 80s to now,
Right.
it's all about who lasted and who kept it up. And it's really only 2 bands. It's Metallica and Iron Maiden. Everybody else disappeared, maybe had a comeback, but disappeared again. But nobody's been steadily selling tickets for going on 40 years. Selling tickets. These guys, these guys are still putting on epic shows. Epic shows,
I mean, they're a stadium band, and
They're a
they
stadium band.
have not been knocked off of that pedestal, which is crazy to think, right? So you had like Judas Priest at one time, also an arena stadium band,
Yeah.
and then I guess Iron Maiden is still a stadium.
I'd say arena band. I don't think that Judas Priest was ever a
Stadium.
stadium headliner. I could be wrong, but
I could be wrong too. I don't know. I'm just making assumptions.
Definitely wrong.
The fake news, but definitely think the influence of Judas Priest throughout the heavy metal culture is very apparent. I mean,
well, hands down. I mean, they were they were leading the pack of the wave of British heavy metal that came over from the other side of the pond. Bands like Saxon, Judas Priest, they all had a certain mid-heavy sound to them. That great dueling guitars,
yeah. I mean, would you consider Thin Lizzy in the grand scheme of heavy metal?
I would not, and just because of the era, I saw them in 1979 when they were in a festival bill, and even though they were a heavy rock band, I would not consider them a metal band.
Okay. Now, would you consider a band like, I don't know, Hawkwind or we'll take it in a different direction. Deep Purple. Do you consider Deep Purple a heavy metal band?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Straight up rock band. When you look at some of the early Deep Purple, like when they were playing the Playboy Club, hey everybody, that's grooving. It was a different animal altogether.
Right.
Before Highway Star and Kick. And even I've seen interviews with the members of Deep Purple talking that they never wanted to stay static and keep doing one thing. They continued to want to develop and do different things.
Gotcha. So, do you think rock and roll has become too obsessed with subgenres as a whole? Like, whether if we're classifying something as rock and roll or heavy metal or hard rock or progressive rock or the blues rock, whatever, you know? Do you think we've gone too insane and now there's too many gatekeepers of the scene now? Like, oh, well, this is this and this is this, and I'm the most righteous person ever.
Yeah, interesting concept. You know, it certainly has genreed off a lot, you know, from when I was a teenager at the record store. You know, there's the rock section, the country section, the pop section.
Right.
Like within all these genres split. I think that's just a byproduct of, since there's been so much more everything, and since the internet, you have so much more access to everything. It was only natural that stuff split into different subcategories.
Yeah.
You know, because now you get to niche into what you like. You know.
Right. There's like the 10, 15 bands of that niche genre that everybody loves, as opposed to just a giant blanket. Do you think it is a hindrance on music today, now that we have so many subgenres, though? Like, do you think because of, for instance, like online gatekeepers of prog rock forums that only classify, I don't know, Gentle Giant or Yes or any of these bands from the, you know, early 70s as like the only progressive rock bands? They wouldn't take in, for instance, like, what's a new modern progressive rock band? We'll say the Mars Volta, for lack of a better term, or Radiohead.
Yeah.
You know, I look at Radiohead as a progressive rock band, even though they might not be in the sense of what we think of progressive rock. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just talking.
No. I completely hear what you're saying. Yeah. And like bands like Radiohead, I really don't know how to classify it. I don't know if I really call them progressive rock because. Like when coming up a million years ago, progressive rock to me was Genesis, the original Genesis, and Yes, and bands that were doing odd time signatures and that had very intricate pieces in it that was difficult to play, where you were hearing like, wow, where'd that come from? You know, that to me was progressive because it was progressing on something that's never been done before. If you're just doing whiny rock, whine, 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 I mean, I don't know really how progressive that is. You know,
sure.
I think TSO, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, is progressive rock.
Yeah.
You know, they're doing something progressive.
Right. Something.
You know?
So somebody that's basically pushing the barrier of pushing the boundaries, basically, doing something new, completely new.
Yeah, always progressive.
Yeah. So Pink Floyd, would you consider them the pinnacle of progressive rock?
Yeah, and I'll tell you two reasons, right? One was the kind of music they're doing. I mean, you go back to Echoes. You know, go back to that album.
Oh man, Metal.
Metal. Thank you.
That's a great album.
Right. When you listen to side one of that album that has Saint Tropez and, you know, and all those great songs on it, but then you go to side two where it really takes you somewhere.
Right.
You know, that is 100% progressive rock, because how do you really genre and define that? You know.
Oh yeah, no, I mean that's just pure 70s psychedelic experimental rock. I mean, Echoes. I watched the Live in Pompeii DVD not too long ago, and they play Echoes from Metal, and it's just like, wow, like the what they were doing back then in experimentation, it was really amazing, and to me, it still doesn't sound dated, like some people might say. Like if you listen to, you know, Frank Sinatra, there's like a time period where it sounds dated, and I'm like, maybe, but you know, Pink Floyd to me is just kind of like, none of their stuff really sounds too dated, especially like Dark Side of the Moon and, you know, Wish You Were Here and all that stuff.
Boom, boom.
Oh, Money, great! That's the most Money bass line ever
of all time. And another thing too about those bands that also made them progressive, especially speaking about Genesis and speaking about Pink Floyd, is that they did concept albums. They had an idea for telling a story that started from the beginning, went to the end, and took you on a lyrical and musical journey. You know, it was meant to sit in your beanbag chair with your headphones on, turn the lights on, bring the lava lamp up, and do one of this with this, and just sit back and get into the music. I mean, The thought of people sitting around now and listening to 40 minutes solid music nonstop with no other distractions, just really taking it in.
Do you think, since we're going into the man cave space of listening to music, do you think the consumption of music for the average consumer of quality, like back in the day, you used to have, a turntable, some nice JBL speakers, or the Sears catalog version of speakers, whatever, and a nice receiver.
Whatever you could afford to put together.
Right, whatever you could afford. But even the cheap stuff from back then, to me, is still better quality than what the average consumer listens through today. Would you agree with that? Or do you think that's just subjective?
Yes and no. I think that the difference is that it was 100% analog. You had the needle that you put down on the record, and there was a different listening experience. You were doing that because you wanted to listen to it. And a buddy of mine who's a TV mixer tells me a story about being at home and somebody called him and goes, when was the last time you took a needle and put it on a record and listened to a record? And he says he dug out his stuff, got some record up, put the needle down and listened to it. You're like, oh my God, we are so accustomed to listening to zeros and ones instead of the waveform. And there is a difference. There is a difference. But other thing too is that how do people consume it? How do we consume it? It's on our phone,
Spotify, whatever.
At best. But you're listening through your phone.
Oh, a little 1-inch speaker.
There's some shitty pods. You're not really sitting in a proper listening environment. Okay, I'm going to listen to this. One thing hearing it. It's another thing listening.
Yeah, and do you think? Okay, so now, in today's culture, everybody's listening to 3-hour podcasts of, these almost like college lectures. You have an unlimited plethora, like the Joe Rogan podcast, right?
Yep.
You got a guy sits down, tells you 3 hours about quantum mechanics or whatever. But now people don't have the ability to sit down and listen to a concept record, and the industry's turned towards singles. Do you think that it's maybe not that, I don't know, where are we going with this question? Do you think that, I'm trying to think it through here. Do you think it's not the listener's fault, it's the industry's fault that we've gone way of the single and making everything about just pumping out singles for today's artists and stuff like that?
Oh, well, that's 100% true.
Yeah.
And now, two things true at the same time. Is it also true that that is easier for the low attention span consumer to take in?
Right, but you think, like, okay, with all these big giant podcasts being many hours long, that if those are also the average consumers that are consuming that format of just talk radio, basically.
Oh, if you're posing the question, like, do people in the music business think the consumers are stupid and have a low attention span? Like, that's 100% true. Their opinions of what I've witnessed of the consumer is very low. It's very low. It's no accident that there came to be a point when bands stopped being approached at a lower level and brought in, as they say. There was a time when an A&R guy would go out, he'd find a band that's got a bit of a following, he'd say, you guys got what it takes, I'm gonna bring you in. And then they'd bring someone in to look how they're playing. Hey, if you did this a little different, and they'd sharpen the show. And they'd take them to a bunch of gigs, low-level club gigs, get them on tour, opening for somebody, get some gigs under you, because nothing brings you up to speed, like doing many shows, right? And then you build the band, then you get a look and a poster, and then you get the fucking producer, then you get him in the studio, then you make the hits, and then you start the big tour, and that goes that way, right? That is a lot of work and time investment that at some point, when they saw, this is 100% true, when they saw what was happening in the rap industry, right? Where you just had to be somebody with any kind of street cred, where a word of mouth thing could get X amount of people in. That was the new template. You know, when you lower the bar, because you got the same 5 guys at the same 5 studios that make all, or the 90%
right.
of all the music that comes out, right? It's about lowering the bar so much that replacing this person when they get out of line is no problem. Right? You want to ask for more money, you want to mouth out, you're out the door. I'll get another one look just like you, and it's going to sound like you, sound just like you, because I got this guy over here that's making the music.
Right.
And recording it and writing the songs. You know, it doesn't matter to me that you're not going to pay back the money that I fronted you, because I'm just going to own you forever. And
right.
That's just how it is.
So, like, for instance, like I know back in the day, a lot of record labels were ran by actual musical conductors. They wrote for orchestras, whatever. You know, do you think because of them getting out of the picture, that was also a part of the decline?
I think Frank Zappa said it best before me, and to paraphrase, you know, that the original record business of the 60s, up until the 60s, was run by just old business guys, you know. And when they wanted to, when people like Zappa and other people came to them to try something new, they said, I don't know, let's make it, let's find out, let's see if it works. Always give it a try. It was when the guys with the ponytails showed up in the industry. I know what the kids want. I know. Well, I know something. I know they drove that business into the fucking dirt. They had no forward vision. You know, all of the record companies are the blockbuster industries for music. You know, they saw what was coming. They made no adjustments at all. And the other thing too is when they dropped the model, in my opinion, when they dropped the model of going after bands and developing bands and bringing bands and went for the cheap shots with this one hit wonder. Now they don't have an army of bands with giant fan bases. Who is the next Grateful Dead? Right? Who is the next band that has the fans like traveling around the country? And please don't say Taylor Swift, because that is a pop anomaly.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I think of modern bands that have any sort of anything, at this point, it's a band from 20 years ago. Yeah. Or even like 10, 15 years ago. You know, yeah. Any bands that are coming up today, I don't even know how you even make it as a band. I mean, I guess the beauty of the internet now is that you can just upload whatever content you want and, you know, put it out there for people to see, and hopefully enough people see it and they'll come out and see your show.
Yep.
You know, and that's the new, I guess, forum for bands to be able to also, in a certain sense, break away from the labels too. I mean, it's not like labels have always been, labels have been good to bands, but they've also fucked over how many bands? All of them. Right. So yeah. It's the Wild West now, and I feel like if you want to be a band in 2024, it's, you know, best of luck to you. I won't knock anybody's dreams. Fucking go for it. We need you to go for it. But, you know, where do you go? Where do you start? I mean, it's like is there even scenes anymore? I mean, because like 10 years ago for me, I'm 32 now. I guess when I was 22, whatever. Like there was like a hardcore scene. You could go out every Friday, Saturday. There would be a house show to go to, or, you know, some shitty, dingy punk rock bar that you could go to. And I'm sure some of that still exists, but I don't know. Maybe because I've gotten older, I don't see it as much. But I just remember growing up, we've always had shows at like VFW halls, wherever we could go and put on a concert, and that's what we did. Yeah,
every place around the country has got their own scene, and outside of like Austin, I can't imagine that there's any place that has a better scene than it used to. But who knows? I could certainly be wrong.
Well, L.A. When I was living in Los Angeles a few years ago, like for rock and roll in Hollywood,
Getting
dude,
my tea. Keep talking.
Yeah, no, I was just saying like that whole scene's dead. I wouldn't say dead, but dead. Because I also think too, with the cost of living and like all this shit that we got going on today, not to say that it's ever been easy in this life, but when your rent is $1,200 a month, to live with roommates in a city like Los Angeles, it's like, how do you find the time to be in a band at the same time?
Well, not just that, but it goes back to how do you make money? I mean, if you want to make money in LA, learn how to read and play a tuba, and maybe even that'll help you. I mean, I have no idea if even session musicians, how much they work, or it's got to be the same guys over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, some of my friends that are out there that are doing it, they buddied up with a friend that had a studio in Santa Monica or whatever, and he was trying to also be a studio guy, and he put together a studio band to help other guys that want to become solo musicians or whatever. They'll write the tune for you, and like kind of like the old school way of doing it, and then blam, there you go, here's your record.
Yep.
So I definitely think that there's still work. It's just it's not like anywhere near what it used to be.
Well, I'll tell you what, to take it back to these guys, Metallica.
Back to Metallica.
I think that they're a great band. I've done a lot of shows with them. They've always been good. I have friends of mine that work with them that's been with them for decades. They take great care of their crew. They're just a great metal band. I mean, period. And they're still out there crushing it.
I mean, they're the only band that I know of that's played Antarctica.
Antarctica.
Yeah, they did.
That's south of here.
They did a show in Antarctica.
For just penguins, or was there people?
There was a small group of scientists, I believe, that were there.
Were they studying the effects of frostbite on fingers of musicians?
They played in. I believe they played inside.
Inside of what?
One of those like
a tent, a yurt,
like one of those like pod spaceship things. I don't know.
You're playing in the pod, yeah. Wish Finn, you've got to curl up and bunk up with the others, yeah. Not a lot of space.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Worst gig ever. I was so cold I had to put my shirt on.
Damn, how did I go off on a tangent like that? Oh, it's ADHD for you.
Mm-hmm. Get you every time.
Dude, it does, man. I tell you, just get me going, man, and I'll go down a rabbit hole, and we'll never come back.
No, we never did come back. Well, good times, Keith.
All right, good times, Pete.
Good times.
Goodbye, everybody.